has been important in Einstein's life and for Einstein. It's been so important that an international organization based here in Geneva, the UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, has chosen Albert Einstein's image as their icon for 2005. Very soon, the floor will be given to the UNHCR. I'm very glad to welcome here on stage Anne-Willem Bielefeld. I hope I pronounced this correctly. He is the External Relations Director of UNHCR. Please come on stage this side, Anne-Willem. And you are going to be the host for the next 20-30 minutes of this show.
Thank you very much, Paula. I'm extremely happy to be here doing this whole event around Einstein, and I think it's very important to see also the other side of Einstein and related to refugees. But I think we'll start first of all now with a spot on public awareness, a public awareness spot showing well-known personalities who all were refugees, and one of them was Einstein.
That's going to be very interesting. Can you remind the title of the spot?
The title of the spot is called Flowers.
Flowers, from the UNHCR.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young girls gone? Gone to young men, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
That was very nice.
You will now hear a statement of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Mr. Guterres. Mr. Guterres took up his position some 6 months ago. And he was appointed by the General Assembly. He was a Prime Minister of Portugal. Here is his statement.
Dear friends and admirers of Albert Einstein, internet users around the globe, ladies and gentlemen, although it might surprise you, there is an important link between our organization, where our primary purpose is to protect the rights and well-being of refugees, and Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein is very dear to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, commonly known as UNHCR. He started off as an ordinary child, became a student with no great interest in his courses, and a young man full of energy who loved to play his violin. But his life has turned upside down when he had to escape from his home country, Germany, out of fear for his life. He became a refugee. And countless Europeans had to leave their homes before the Second World War to escape humiliation and persecution. Millions who remained were killed. Organizing the return of the refugees at the end of the war was extremely difficult. Europe was in complete chaos, and the international community decided to create a special agency to help, and in 1950, the United Nations established the UNHCR. The organization is meant to last only a few years, until the refugee situation was solved. But new wars, new conflicts around the world continued to force people to flee their own countries. So we are still protecting and helping refugees more than 50 years later. Refugees are people who have left their country because they have a real fear of being persecuted, only because of their race, religion, political opinion, or social group. They cannot return home.
When do you want me
Today, UNHCR helps around 20 million people all over the world. Of course, not all of those 20 million are like Einstein, but all refugees are children, women, and men like the rest of us. They need a place where they can live normally until the danger has passed and they can come home again. They often become valuable members of the host communities, like Einstein did. And not all refugees will become celebrities or geniuses, and we have to be careful not to think that only potential Einsteins deserve our assistance and our respect. All refugees bring with them, besides their few belongings, their skills, their experience, and their individual dreams. There is something else about Einstein that makes him important to Unhcr, and this is the curiosity and the courage he had to question what seemed obvious, what was accepted as fact. Einstein was not convinced by preconceived notions and conservative ideas. He challenged existing theories instead of accepting what others believed about the laws of physics. And the result was his famous theory of relativity. It also makes him an example to remember when we look at refugee issues today. As communications and transportation make our world smaller, more and more people are on the move today. Migrants, people looking for better jobs, are often confused with those who are escaping persecution and war. And this confusion is sometimes fueled by intolerant people who want to keep everyone who is different out of their country. Asylum to refugees is increasingly used as a political issue, very far from its true purpose, which is the right of a persecuted person to be granted protection and refuge. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to warmly thank the CERN for giving Unhcr the opportunity to present this side of Einstein, little known, but very important for our cause. And I urge you, friends and admirers of Albert Einstein, Internet users all over the globe, ladies and gentlemen, to keep in mind the positive contributions refugees can make to the countries which take them in, and remember Einstein's example. Last, I encourage you to develop your creativity and your sense of curiosity to find new answers, more humane and rational answers to the big questions we face today. I urge you to test explanations and not to let others feed you preconceived answers and fears. It takes courage to question refugee and asylum issues today in a sensible and reasonable manner. But if you, young women and men, students, scientists, believers in knowledge and science, if you don't have the courage to be rational, then who will? Thank you very much.
I now have the pleasure to call on stage my colleague Doris Kleffner. Doris is with UNHCR now for the past 10 years. She has worked in refugee camps in Rwanda, Liberia, Afghanistan, and currently she is managing a program for refugee students which was set up in commemoration of Albert Einstein. Doris.
Thank you very much. Since 1992, the German government is providing every year over $2 million US dollars to the UN Refugee Agency under the Albert Einstein German Academic Refugee Initiative. In short, according to the German abbreviation, we call it the DAFI Scholarship Program. Under this program, UNHCR provides university scholarships to refugees in developing countries, mainly in Africa. We are able to provide about, with this money, 1,000 scholarships every year. However, this is nothing compared with the needs. There are hundreds of thousands of young youth and refugees sitting in rural camps in developing countries, sitting idle with no access to further education or any means of self-sustainability. The situation for girls is particularly difficult. They often drop out of school at very early age because they have household responsibilities or they're being married off at a very early age by the parents. So the situation is very difficult, even to access primary education. I will just mention now a few stories of some of the students. For example, there's Emmanuel Kachul from southern Sudan. He already had to walk 16 kilometers to and from primary school. Then the war came, and most of the youth was entangled with the war activities, and they suffered from forced recruitment into the military. And what these child soldiers have gone through, we cannot imagine it in wealthy countries. They have gone through fighting, beatings, other horrors, extreme thirst, extreme hunger, just to mention some of them. Now, Emmanuel, he managed, with a few other kids, they managed to flee to a refugee camp in Ethiopia. But there, being alone without parents, he was again exposed to exploitation for cheap labor, and later again forcibly recruited into the military. Finally, he found a host family who gave him access to primary education, but not in a school like we imagine. It's a school under trees with teachers who don't have much training. But long story short, he finally managed to flee further to Kenya for education, and he got one of the precious Daffy scholarships. He graduated last year in agriculture and now returned to Sudan and is helping in the reconstruction of his country. Another story, Christina from Sierra Leone. She was tortured by rebels in her home country. Her parents, her whole family was killed, and she had no hopes for the future. She's studying now computer science in Ghana, and she says that this helps her to overcome the horrific experiences that she experienced during the civil war in her country. And she says education is something that nobody can ever take away from her. If we could just provide a little bit more education opportunities to all those youth in the camps who are prone to human trafficking, prostitution, military recruitment, if we could provide them with an education that they desperately want, we would make a great contribution to more sustainable peace and development. But I'd like to talk also about some of the students who studied physics under the Albert Einstein program. One of them, Alison Hughes, he studied physics in Ghana, and he's now teaching physics at the University of Ghana. He's a refugee from Liberia. We had a telephone conversation with him, but unfortunately, we cannot broadcast it because the quality is too poor. But we would still like to share with you some of the things he has said. Anna Willem, please.
This is what Alison said. I also serve as a member of the Ghana National Planning Committee for the World Year of Physics. I serve as a secretary to the Publicity Committee, and we have planned a series of activities which began even last year in November. Last year, we selected some students who represented us at the first International Physics Olympiad in Indonesia, and we are proud that one of our students won a bronze award. This year, we have also selected 6 students who will also be leaving from Ghana for the second Junior World International Olympiad. As a member of this committee, we sit and plan programs to see how physics can be made so simple that the common man can understand this. I also have a 5-minute program on the national radio station, Unique FM, where I talk about everyday physics. So every Friday, 5 after 4 p.m., I have a 5-minute slot. I try to make physics as simple as possible so that the common man knows that physics is not as difficult as they think it is.
Thank you very much, Anne Willem. And finally, we have a live ex-student here. I would like to introduce Michael Flowers, who has been studying, he's a Liberian refugee. He's been studying physics in Ghana, where he got a BSc in physics. And then that helped him on his own initiative. He went on to the UK, where he got an MSc in applied physics. We are very happy to have him today here with us, and I'd like to invite him to say a few words.
I will tell you a little bit about my experience in order to demonstrate some of the important points Ms. Kleffner mentioned. Before the war in Liberia, I was a student at the University of Liberia. There was no water, there was no electricity, there was no food. One day, whilst walking home, I found myself trapped in a rebel ambush. A rebel approached me and asked me to take off my shirt. I tried to beg for my life, and then he told me, "One more word and I'll blow your eyes through your glasses." I panicked. I was condemned to death, along with 4 other people. We stood in the firing squad. We were 5. The 4 people standing beside me were shot. I lived. The horrific scene and the panic, the scale of the war, forced me to flee Monrovia. I decided to walk to Sierra Leone, a neighboring county. I had a lot of experience with my life. There were threats every day, every moment of my journey. Every checkpoint was a potential killing field. I became stranded in Cape Mount County. It's a nearby county before you get to Sierra Leone. I spent 8 months, mostly in the bush, trying to avoid being recruited into the rebel activity or being killed. A few months later, I left Cape Mount County back to Monrovia. There was no work done, but I managed to find my way on a Ghanaian vessel to Ghana. There was nothing with me to start life with, but at least I was very happy. I saw street lights. I saw normal life for the first time since the war. Life at a refugee camp is quite challenging, so I chose to do some job outside of the refugee camp. I was teaching English. A year later, I decided to go back to university. I applied to the University of Ghana, but then I did not have any academic credential to show to the academic board. The only thing I had from the war was my ID card. So I was interviewed, I took oral examination, and I passed. So I was accepted, and I studied for physics. In 1996, I graduated, and the university offered me a position of teaching assistant in the physics department. A year later, I left for the UK to study advanced engineering in system manufacturing at Brunel University. I was accepted on a research program, so I managed to pay my school fees whilst in the UK. After graduation in 1999, I went back to Ghana to run seminars in physics at the University of Ghana. I also ran short-term courses for career targets at the refugee camp in Ghana. I've also founded my own company in the UK. It's called Flowers Technologies. My message to refugees outside there and the youth is that dreams can come true. All you have to do is to stay motivated and do not allow any bad situation or difficult situation to get in the way. Finally, I will appreciate the Unhcr and then the German government. I'll thank them so much for the help they give to refugees, for the life they give to refugees, and the new hope they provide to refugees. I also thank CERN for this opportunity, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Michael. Now, you've heard about refugees who were all in difficult situations, but they got an opportunity, and they grabbed that opportunity. They made something with it, and they really made it, as you have heard. But unfortunately, there are many other refugees and youngsters who are in the camps or in refugee camps and who do not have access to education, secondary education, etc. And so we'd like to show you a spot now depicting camp activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Willem, for this very, very interesting excursus of especially your Einstein Fund. I didn't know about it. It's a great idea. I think it's time now to invite another guest on stage from CERN this time, Manjit Dosanjh. Thank you for being with us, Manjit. Manjit is advisor to the Director General of CERN for relations with the international organizations and health-related problems. Is that right, Manjit?
That's right. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here, particularly in this particular UNHCR spot, because I think we've heard some moving stories, and also I personally did not know this aspect of Einstein, him being a refugee, and also that the German government is having the special fund for this specific purpose. I think actually it's a very interesting idea, and also it should be really utilized in any case. So I think I'm very glad to hear about it, and also to congratulate you for having such a fund to help people in need.
And that confirms that Einstein is really the best character in the history of humanity to incorporate both science and peace, actually. I think the peace message and science message is something very dear to CERN's heart. Is that right?
It certainly is, and I think we cannot emphasize enough, it was already said by Professor Srinivasan this morning from the Library of Alexandria, that science is a common language, it's a unifying force, it brings people together. And it was within this particular spirit when CERN was founded just over 50 years ago, was to use science as a way of fostering peace just after the Second World War, to bring European countries together who had been fighting each other, and use physics and science as a way of trying to bring them together and foster peace through scientific collaboration.
50 years have elapsed since that time when CERN was created, and of course the war, at least in Europe, is a very remote memory, hopefully, and has CERN's vision changed in the meantime about peace?
I'm glad to say that our vision has not changed at all, and we are pleased that we in Western Europe are at peace. But of course, conflict throughout the world still exists. And for us, the vision is as vivid today as it was more than 50 years ago. And what has been interesting for us is during our development 50 years, during the Cold War, for example, our CERN scientists kept collaborations behind the Iron Curtain with the Soviet Union. And this actually was a great opportunity for them to keep this contact with us, because otherwise they would have been isolated. And now we are collaborating with 85 countries throughout the globe. We have over 6,000 scientists, and they all work with a common mission of common goal of doing science, and they don't care about religion, which culture, which language. It really brings them together. And I want to give you one particular example that I came across 2 years ago. We had 5 young ladies from the Arab Emirates who came here as summer students, and I was discussing with them, and they told me a story. First, they had never really worked very much with male physicists, and of course CERN is dominated by male physics, because physics is very much a male-dominated discipline. But the second thing which really touched me is that 2 of them ended up working with somebody from Israel, and they had never even met anybody from Israel, let alone collaborated.
So let's hope this serves as a model for future similar organizations to set up, especially in the hot spots of our planet.
Yeah. And actually, I'm very pleased to actually say that in 2004, there is a new initiative in the Middle East called Sesame, and it brings out 9 of the countries, including Israel and Palestine and Egypt and many others, and it's on the model of CERN. And the champion behind this initiative is Professor Schopper, who is one of our ex-director generals from CERN, and they're hoping that in the same way that CERN was used to unify the European countries after the World War, that Sesame could function in the same way for the Middle East.
I think there are also other examples of CERN being useful to society, especially in these areas, less favored areas of our planet. Can you mention some of these examples, Manjit?
Right. Well, the first thing I want to actually say is that this year, the year 2005, is 5 years since the Millennium Development Goal project was initiated, and they have actually been analyzing to see what's been going on and how well they might be able to meet these development goals. And when they've done the analysis, what has come out is that the statement has been made that unless science, technology, and innovation is really used in a coherent way, there is no way the Millennium Development Goals can be met by 2015. So I think that is really important for us scientists to remember that although we do our basic research, there are a lot of technologies and innovation that is coming out which needs to be used for helping society, but in particular this ever widening gap between North and South and developing countries and developed countries. And CERN has started some of the initiatives in collaboration with other organizations, and I want to mention two particular ideas. One is we are trying to start this initiative with the Canadian Research Development, UNESCO, various other organizations, of connecting Africa. And the idea of trying to connect African universities and academic institutions is to give them the possibility of connecting with each other, learning how to do this, getting education, health, scientific content, and really to train them so that they can utilize these information communication technologies to help themselves in a model similar to, as Kofi Annan has said before, we shouldn't give food, but we should actually give them the tools to grow the food. And I think that in physics in particular, so we develop a lot of technologies, and this morning we've already heard about the World Wide Web, which helps to connect the world.
We're going to hear more about that later.
And I'm not going to say much more because you already have heard a little bit and you will hear more. But the World Wide Web gives great possibilities of connecting us globally, and it should be used to bridge the digital divide, the education, health, knowledge divide, not to widen it. And I think that there are the tools, and we could try to utilize them. And I think what the project of Connecting Africa is one of those visions in mind. And the second project, again, I mentioned very briefly because I know you're going to hear about it more, and that's Africa at Home. And the idea behind Africa at Home is to utilize people's computing power to look at the problems that are confronting the developing world, and particularly in Africa, which is really one of the least connected countries. And they start with the malaria project, where 1 million people are dying every year. And it's mostly really impacting sub-Saharan Africa, because it's really the poorest, the least connected part of the world. And this project will look at the dynamics, the disease controls, and these various ideas to see how best we can try to help and to overcome this. So I just give you two. There are many other examples, just to say that where we can be useful.
Okay, thank you very much, Manu.
So during this half hour we've been talking with you, we've trying to show how refugees also in their own way have contributed to the development of physics. And some in a small way, some in a very big way, such as Einstein. But we'd like to close this segment with a spot on stereotypes. And what you will see a little film about depicting national stereotypes, but with a different face. Because that is what the world of today is about. We cannot anymore depict the national stereotypes as we knew them long time ago, and maybe that's very good. So we watch now the spot on stereotypes.